Efe Cakarel from Mubi, who has a very exciting presentation for you guys, and we would appreciate your attention. So, you ready to go, Efe? Yes? Okay. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is working? Hello? Hi, is this working? Working better? Okay, great. Hi. I'm delighted to be here. I'll have my presentation in English because we have a lot of guests from all over the world. I'm Efe. I'm the founder of Mubi. How many people do not know about Mubi right here? Okay. Well, maybe I'll do some introduction about Mubi then at some point. Well, we are a global video on demand platform that exists in some 170 countries. But I'm not going to talk about Mubi today much. I'm going to talk about our observations about digital media and how the world is changing. And I hope you find this interesting. So, welcome to the revolution. Right? I mean, don't be alarmed if you haven't noticed, because things change so fast around us that sometimes we don't know what's new and what's really different. Okay? But consider this. Every piece of content ever produced, we are very fast approaching a time that you can access any type of content on any device, anywhere. Okay? And that is really changing the way that people discover, consume, and share media. Can I use a microphone instead of this? Because I'm... Yeah. Okay. And an entirely new media ecosystem is emerging, right? And to understand this, I always say you only have to look at the popular uses of internet in Asia. Yeah. Yeah, to understand this, you only need to look at the popular uses of Asia. Why Asia? I spent a lot of time there, and I'm fascinated by the region. Why? 3 reasons. 1, young population. Average age in Asia ex-Japan is 25 years old. You go to Western Europe, it's about 40. You go to places like Germany and Spain, it's above 45. So that 15, 20 age year difference makes a very big difference in the way that you interact with the world around you. 2, really fast internet. Okay, average broadband speed in Tokyo is 62 megabit per second. In Seoul, it's 45. In London, where I live, 6. Okay, so that also changes things. And 3, the region has a bit of a healthy disrespect for copyright. Right? So the content is available. So you put these 3 things together, and it's an incredible social lab to observe what's what's really happening in the digital world. And I have 2 observations that I want to share with you. 1 is the emergence of an entirely new network. Okay, the original concept of media network is one of a broadcast network, right? So in a traditional broadcast network, there's a central tower that beams something, and everybody around it, gets it at the same time. It's a perfect example of top-down control. But in a world where you can access any content, anytime, anywhere, you start relying on a different type of network, an audience network. Okay? And audience networks can be everywhere. It's a circle of friends on Facebook. It's a celebrity that you follow on Twitter. It's everybody who likes Fellini's 8.5 on Mubi. And that emergence of a new network is a very key observation. Right? And 2, this revolution has nothing to do with technology. Okay, it's very seductive, isn't it, to think the evolution of digital media from and the TVs from black and white to color to digital to HD, but except that it doesn't work like that. And why in this world of Blu-ray discs and high definition videos and high fidelity audio, people are watching hours and hours of content on Netflix and Hulu and Mubi? Because revolutions in media are rarely based on linear improvements in technology. It is ignited when people start behaving differently. Okay, and how did this change so suddenly? It has to do with momentum. New patterns of behavior often build to a point of criticality followed with a massive state change. That's called the cliff effect for the socialists here. And it is the reason why digital media evolution may play out to be much faster than a lot of people think. The problem with predicting such change sometimes is that it might seem like a step backwards, like watching videos on YouTube, but it's actually a step in an entirely new direction. So where will this lead us? I mean, to find the answer, one must really look at how it's been. I described the media industry until recently as a factory. What happens in a factory? In a factory, media was a shrink-wrapped product, that is designed and built for mass consumption. Okay, and here, everyone's job in the production process was clear. Studio bigwigs would decide what movie to produce. And distribution deals would be cut over lunch at the Hotel du Cap over a glass of rosé, right? And a handful of editors in trade magazines and newspapers would decide, what's good. Then when everything is ready, distributors in studios would use their carefully controlled relationships to distribute the content, and the marketers would have the not so interesting job of convincing the public what they should watch and in which we know they should watch it. And it was good while it lasted. Then at some point, boom, okay, the factory exploded. That, although not everyone in LA would admit. But if you look carefully, things are a little certain for the factory model right now. The TV viewing figures started to fall. DVD sales plateaued in the West, completely fell off the cliff in Asia. Piracy increased. It became a lot more difficult to limit distribution to particular windows and geographies, right? And that's Liechtenstein's explosion, by the way. It's going up in Tate Modern in London next month for 3 months if you happen to be there. And this is my key point. There is no point in fighting the future. Okay? Formats, rights, playback limitations aside, people will always find a way. And this is not about breaking the rules as well. It's just a symptom of the media regime that is not adjusting to the consumer behavior. And it's fruitless to resist this change because, you think piracy is a problem today. This is the tip of the iceberg. You have smartphones. By the end of this year, there will be 1 billion smartphone users globally. It took us 30 years to get to billion computer users. Okay, and what I think is really fascinating about the smartphone is really the processing power. When I went to MIT in '94, I went there to study architecture. And '94, if you remember, that was the time when Netscape Navigator was announced. It was the first popular browser. Suddenly I found myself in the middle of this and discovered this thing called the internet. And I found myself in the computer science department as a result. And I studied computer science. And there, MIT, along with Caltech, had the fastest computers in the world at the time. Now Stanford also is doing really well. What you're looking at is System 390, IBM mainframe computer, which was the fastest family of mainframe computers in the 90s until, again, IBM introduced the 64-bit Z architecture, right? And the 967 implementation you're looking at is introduced in '94, and it was right there. The fastest computer in the world was right there in my lab at MIT. And this was no ordinary computer. It had 6 CPUs. Okay, it has 66 MIPS and 2 gigabytes of memory. Okay. Well, you know where I'm going with this, right? This phone in my pocket, this is an A6 chip. And it is said to use a 1.3 gigahertz ARM v7 chip. It has 2,000 millions of information per second processing power versus the 66 megabits millions of information per second for the IBM mainframe. Well, this is an exceptionally fast phone, but any smartphone today has as much power, okay, as what we had back in '94. And '94 was not even that long ago. I find this to be incredibly fascinating that there is a billion people that is walking around with as much processing power as an IBM mainframe only about 20 years ago, less than 20 years ago. And this number also happens to be the number of users that Facebook has. Right? And it's not Facebook per se that matters. What matters is the social graph. You connect a billion people and give them that much processing power and in their pockets, and that can be very interesting for solving all sorts of problems going forward. But what problems we should be solving? Okay? As an internet entrepreneur, I spend a lot of time on thinking about the popular uses of internet. Okay? And let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest use of internet in Asia? Okay, well, if you speak Chinese, here's a clue. That's internet in Chinese, and it literally means entertainment highway. Okay? The primary use of internet in Asia is entertainment. Okay? The leading social network in China is Renren. Renren is mostly used for social games and the use of virtual goods. The Farmville, the fastest growing of social games 2 years ago, which started this whole online social gaming revolution. It's actually the original based in Asia. It used to be called Happy Farms. My wife is Asian, and she was completely addicted to that. And it is through this kind of process that I came up with the idea of Mubi. One day I was sitting in a cafe in Tokyo 5 years ago. Sorry, 7 years ago now. I wanted to watch a movie on my laptop. It's the fastest broadband, very advanced country, the third biggest film market in the world. And I couldn't believe that there was not a single platform that allowed me to do so. Well, hold on a second. Film is a $127 billion industry. 52% of it is home video, almost entirely DVD and pay TV, which was going to significantly shift to TCP/IP protocol. And it was obvious even back then. And there was no iPad, there was no App Store, but it was obvious, right? And that sounded like a good opportunity. So I started writing the business plan on the way home. One more. Thank you. And we set up Mubi. I mean, we set up, we are headquartered in Palo Alto. We have about 6 million registered users right now, fairly active. We are growing our subscriber base some 3 to 5% every single week, which has been incredible for us, because you can see how that can go exponential. And we are quietly building one of the most significant film distribution platforms in the world. And here's our model. You can't quite see it. We bring you a great film each day for only X amounts per month. Different prices in different countries, mostly based on the McDonald's index and what the competition is. I just wanted to share with you some screenshots. This is the screenshot of our app on PlayStations. It doesn't exist in Turkey. It exists in some 18 countries. This is a joint venture that we have with Sony. And they put some capital in together. We developed an application and launched this. This is actually really the beginnings of Mubi. Within 3 months of launching this app in Europe and Asia Pacific, ex-Japan, we had more than 1 million people downloading this app on PlayStation Network, which was quite significant even for them. So where are we going with Mubi? Making money in content has been tricky. And you have heard a lot of people starting VOD businesses and going out of business, because it's tough. But it's changing, and it's changing really fast. Sometime over the past year and a half, I would say, in US, people now, when they want to watch a movie, instead of getting in their cars and driving down to Blockbuster to rent a DVD, they increasingly want to access it from one of their connected devices. Netflix has been very successful. I just read their quarterly report on the way here. They generated $975 million last quarter in revenue. Okay, that's real money. This is digital streaming revenue, not the DVD. Deutsche Telekom, I've been spending some time with them the past few weeks in their headquarters in Bonn, because because we launched Mubi in Germany recently, and we're growing really fast. Millions of people have their set-top boxes and get movies over the TCP/IP protocol. Time Warner have a huge cable business, obviously, and they started experimenting in just 2 states last year in giving access to their cable customers. Also, the same content online has been so successful that they are now rolling that out domestically. And you got companies like HBO have been launching HBO Go, their internet business, all over the world now. Right? So very, very interesting developments in the big media companies. And then there are the upstarts. Google and Amazon are no longer ones, but in this particular business they are. And we are all doing some very interesting things because we identify and spot the sources of disruption. And we know that in the next 5 to 10 years, the world is going to change really significantly. And I'm not afraid of making money, because one thing that I'm sure of is that when consumer behavior changes, business sooner or later follows, right? This is the second key insight from my entire presentation. When consumer behavior changes, business follows. But the media ecosystem may remain irrational longer than you remain liquid, right? So you need to have the right strategy. You need to have a long-term view. And I do have a long-term view. I think about the next 10, 20 years. Most people don't think about the next 20 years, because most people will either be cashed out or broke by then. But if you want to be the best, if you want to dominate the world, you need to think about long-term. And I do want to dominate the world, right? And I spend a lot of time studying different countries, demographic changes, and where the world is going to be in 2030. And I look at all sorts of variables, GDP, young population, the growth of young population, how media savvy they are, how social media savvy they are, the development of e-commerce ecosystems, people's propensity to pay online, what is the existing level of competition, and I come up with some very interesting countries. Of course, everybody talks about the BRIC countries, but then I also like to talk about MIST. Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, Turkey, places like that. There's some seriously interesting things that are happening. And just some numbers to share with you. Facebook, of course, gives a very clear indication of social media savviness and how active people are online. What percentage you think of people who have broadband access in the US have a Facebook account? Anybody want to take a guess? No, it's 62 actually, in US. Yeah, in UK that number is about 55. What do you think in Turkey? 91. Okay, there is only one other country in the world that has a higher penetration of Facebook users among broadband customers, and that's Mexico. Okay, in Mexico it's almost like if you have internet, you're on Facebook. But Turkey is very significant, and I think I shared in the, recently somewhere that Istanbul is the second largest city in terms of number of Facebook users after Bangkok. So it's not Sao Paulo, it's not Mumbai, it's not New York, London, none of them. And here is the third and key important insight, is that the most powerful future influence on internet will be the digital emergence of countries outside of the US, right? Well, that's it. So what have I said? Let me sum it up. I think we are going through an extraordinary time when the consumer experience on the way that we discover, share, and consume media is changing. That is fueled a lot by the proliferation of connected devices, particularly smartphones, that are incredibly processing power, has incredible processing power. And we also should be looking at really the whole world, especially the world outside of the United States, where 89% of the internet users today are. Okay? It used to be 70% just 11 years ago. Okay? So the world is changing really fast, and look outside of the United States is very interesting potential markets that not a lot of people are doing interesting things. And Turkey, of course, is one of those great markets that I myself am spending incredibly more amount of time. And it's time to have some Turkish coffee, and it's great to be an internet entrepreneur and be in Istanbul. And let's go change the world. Thank you. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Great.
That was wonderful. Well, time for one or two questions if you guys have them. Otherwise, ask him over the coffee. Okay, Barash, one quick question. Can you take him a microphone? Yeah.
So 2 questions.
Yeah.
First, can you talk a little bit about, like, you know, you are kind of building this huge library and explosion of content, people are connected every day, anytime, any platform. Can you talk a little bit about curation, the importance of curation? And also the second part is, what are the challenges or what are the opportunities you see to switch Turkey to kind of this subscription model, like, you know, you see in Hulu? And any thoughts on that will be great.
Yeah. Curation is going to become increasingly more important. Why? In a world where you have access to, you know, any type of content anywhere, the services that just pitch that, they're going to become commoditized really fast. In fact, nothing quite differentiates Netflix from Hulu, from Amazon, and so on and so forth. And that's part of the reason why they are now doing interesting things like producing their original TV series and putting up a lot of money on the table to get exclusive content. You know, what Netflix has done with TV series and the deal that they signed with Disney to have exclusively their first pay window starting in 2016. So in the world of like all-you-can-eat content, that business is becoming very expensive and very commoditized very fast. And what Mubi wants to do is Mubi wants to create an experience, and that's actually our model. Every day we bring you a new film that stays for 30 days. And there's always 30 films you can watch, and they are carefully programmed and created to answer your need. If you're in the mood to watch an action film versus a comedy versus a new film versus a classic, it's there. And you build a brand associated with it. So I think you need to build a brand, and curation is important. Second, challenge of subscription. Yes, it's very challenging because we as a society, you know, we don't have the existing consumer experience of paying for content online. Okay, we are so used to getting it for free. But it is happening because the way that we're going to break that is making it a lot more convenient for you to consume this content. And having the best films, recent films, beautifully encoded, with Dolby Digital Surround Sound and HD. Dolby Digital Surround Sound on streaming is coming this year to Turkey, and we are bringing it. We, along with Netflix, are the only 2 platforms who would be doing it globally. And make the price point really, really right. And that's the way that we are going to start breaking it. But it's challenging, but we are growing in Turkey every week, 3 to 5%, our subscriber base. So I'm actually quite happy. Yes, what you just said, any film is a very expensive game. That doesn't make unit economic sense in Turkey at the moment. It doesn't make unit economic sense in UK too, but you know, it's such a big potential market that you got guys like Netflix and Amazon with Love Film investing hundreds of millions of dollars to pay the minimum guarantees necessary to sustain a 10,000 film library. You need to spend in Turkey $15–20 million in minimum guarantees to even break, you know, to get those films. And you do the math. You need to charge some $6 to $8. You need 400,000 subscribers to even break even on the content. You're not going to get to 400,000 subscribers in Turkey anytime soon. So, yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about anything when I was sitting in that coffee shop in Tokyo, right? So as an entrepreneur, you say, wow, it's a great opportunity. You jump on it. A year later, you realize why there is not a single platform in Japan doing that. And then you adopt and you grow, and it's about passion and commitment. And I'm committed to this, and the wind is on my back, right? In 10 years, this is going to be a huge company if we execute our vision. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Efe. That was a really wonderful way to end our afternoon session. You guys have been a great audience. What's going to happen next is we do get to have that Turkish coffee. So we have about a 15-minute break. And then we're actually going to come back into this room for the speed networking sessions. So the room will be all set up differently. So please go have some coffee and then come back. Thank you.